Do you ever feel that subtle, persistent hum beneath the surface of your life? A quiet unease, a sense that something fundamentally is missing, even when everything seems to be in place. You wake up, you go through the motions, you achieve, you consume, you connect, or at least you think you connect. Yet, there's a phantom limb of a freedom you never quite had, a weight of expectations that aren't entirely your own, a quiet dread that whispers, "Is this all there is?" It's a feeling many of us carry, a silent burden that we rarely articulate, even to ourselves. We scroll through curated lives, we chase fleeting highs, we numb ourselves with endless distractions, all while a deeper part of us yearns for something more, something authentic, something real. We believe we are free, living in an era of unprecedented choice and personal liberty, but what if that belief is the most elaborate cage of all? What if the very definition of freedom we've been sold is precisely what keeps us bound? This isn't about external oppression, not in the traditional sense. This is about the invisible chains, the ones forged not by tyrants, but by culture, by convenience, by our own unexamined fears and desires. These are the chains that bind our minds, our spirits, and our capacity for genuine self-realization. They are the subtle threads that weave through our daily routines, our aspirations, our relationships, making us feel perpetually slightly off-kilter, perpetually searching for a peace that always seems just out of reach. We are told to be ourselves, but then presented with an endless parade of ideals to emulate. We are encouraged to follow our dreams, but only if those dreams fit neatly into pre-approved societal pathways. We are promised happiness through acquisition, through validation, through the relentless pursuit of an externalized perfection that, like a mirage, recedes the closer we get. And in this pursuit, we often lose sight of the most profound freedom of all, the freedom to define ourselves, to choose our own values, to live a life that resonates with our deepest, most authentic self, regardless of the world's applause or condemnation. This journey we're about to embark on is not for the faint of heart. It will ask you to look inward, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to question the very foundations of what you believe to be true about yourself and the world. It will challenge the narratives you've internalized, the assumptions you've made, and the comfortable illusions you've built around your existence. But in doing so, it offers a glimpse of a different kind of freedom, one that is earned, not given, one that is forged in the crucible of self-discovery, not found on a shelf or in a social media feed. So lean in. Let's pull back the curtain on the unseen chains that bind us, and perhaps together we can begin to understand what it truly means to be free. We live in an era of unprecedented choice. From the coffee we drink to the careers we pursue, the partners we choose, the identities we project online, the sheer volume of options can feel exhilarating. Yet, paradoxically, this abundance often leads to a profound sense of paralysis, anxiety, and a nagging feeling of inadequacy. We are told that freedom is the ability to choose, but what if the choices themselves are part of the trap? Consider the illusion of choice. We are presented with a dazzling array of products, services, and lifestyles, each promising to fulfill a deep-seated need. But are these truly our choices, born from an authentic internal desire? Or are they carefully constructed options designed to channel our energy and resources into systems that benefit others? We choose between brand A and brand B, between streaming service X and streaming service Y, between political ideology P and political ideology Q. But how often do we question the underlying premise, the very necessity of these choices, or the frameworks within which they are presented? We are like prisoners in a beautifully decorated cell, allowed to choose the color of our uniform, but never the option of leaving the prison itself. This leads us to the tyranny of should. From the moment we are old enough to understand language, we are bombarded with messages about what we should be, should do, should feel. You should be successful, which often means financially prosperous and outwardly impressive. You should be happy, which often means perpetually positive and free of struggle. You should be well-adjusted, which often means conforming to societal norms and avoiding anything that might rock the boat. This internal voice, amplified by social media, advertising, and even well-meaning loved ones, becomes a relentless taskmaster. It dictates our aspirations, shapes our self-perception, and subtly erodes our capacity for genuine self-acceptance. We become so preoccupied with meeting these externalized shoulds that we lose touch with our own intrinsic desires, our own unique rhythm, our own authentic voice. The shoulds become the invisible bars of our self-made cage, preventing us from exploring the vast, untamed landscape of our true potential. And what happens when we try to escape this tyranny of shoulds? We often encounter the fear of the void. The modern world is a symphony of distraction. Our phones buzz, our screens glow, our minds race with an endless stream of information, entertainment, and obligation. We are constantly connected, constantly stimulated, constantly doing. But what are we avoiding? What happens when the noise stops? When the distractions fade and we are left alone with our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own unexamined existence? For many, this is a terrifying prospect. The void, the silence, the stillness. It can feel like a gaping chasm threatening to swallow us whole. So we reach for another notification, another episode, another task, anything to keep the uncomfortable truths at bay. We become addicted to the superficial, not because it truly satisfies, but because it offers a temporary reprieve from the deeper questions that lurk beneath the surface. This addiction to distraction is a powerful chain binding us to the periphery of our lives, preventing us from diving into the rich, complex depths of our own being. This constant performance, this relentless pursuit of external validation, culminates in the performance trap. Life for many has become a stage. We curate our online personas, meticulously selecting the angles, the filters, the captions that project an image of success, happiness, and desirability. We craft narratives about our lives that are often more aspirational than actual. We present a polished, edited version of ourselves to the world, hoping to garner likes, comments, and approval. But this performance is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, a perpetual awareness of how we are perceived. It creates a profound disconnect between our inner experience and our outer presentation. The more we perform, the further we drift from our authentic selves, until we might even forget who that authentic self is. The applause of the crowd, once a source of fleeting satisfaction, becomes another chain, binding us to the expectations of others, preventing us from ever truly being ourselves, flaws and all. We become prisoners of our own carefully constructed image, unable to break free for fear of disappointing our audience, or worse, revealing the perceived inadequacy beneath the facade. These are the invisible chains of the modern condition, the illusion of choice, the tyranny of should, the fear of the void, and the performance trap. They are subtle, insidious, and often go unnoticed because they are woven into the very fabric of our daily lives, but their cumulative effect is profound. They diminish our capacity for genuine freedom, for authentic self-expression, and for a life lived on our own terms. But this isn't a new phenomenon. Humanity has grappled with these questions for millennia. And in the echoes of the past, in the wisdom of ancient and modern philosophers, we can find not only a deeper understanding of our predicament, but also potential pathways to liberation. To truly understand the unseen chains, we must turn to those who have dared to question the nature of reality, freedom, and the human condition. Their insights, although centuries old, resonate with startling clarity in our hyper-modern world. Let us begin with Plato's allegory of the cave, a timeless metaphor for the human condition. Imagine prisoners chained from birth in a cave facing a wall. Behind them, a fire burns, and between the fire and the prisoners, puppeteers parade objects, casting shadows on the wall. These shadows are the only reality the prisoners have ever known. They name them, discuss them, and believe them to be the sum total of existence. They are utterly convinced of the truth of these fleeting images. Now let's reimagine Plato's cave for the 21st century. The shadows on the wall are no longer just flickering images from a fire. They are the curated feeds of social media, the sensationalized headlines of the news cycle, the carefully constructed narratives of advertising, the popular opinions that sweep through our digital echo chambers. These are the realities we consume daily, often without question. We spend hours gazing at these shadows, believing them to be the full spectrum of human experience, the definitive truth of the world. We compare our lives to these shadows. We derive our values from them. We allow them to dictate our aspirations and fears. The chains that bind us in this modern cave are not physical iron. They are the chains of comfort, of convenience, of the fear of ridicule and the inertia of the familiar. It is comfortable to stay in the cave, to accept the shadows as reality. It requires no effort, no questioning, no painful introspection. To turn away from the wall, to question the shadows, is to embrace discomfort. The first unseen chain, then, is our tendency towards self-deception, our preference for comforting illusions over uncomfortable truths. We often cling to idealized versions of ourselves, our relationships, and our society. Even when reality screams otherwise, we avoid confronting our own weaknesses, our own complicity in systems that bind us, our own fears that prevent us from acting. This self-deception is a powerful chain, keeping us from accurately assessing our situation and taking effective steps towards liberation. Machiavelli's concept of virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but a combination of skill, courage, foresight, and decisive action, is crucial for breaking these chains. It is the ability to act effectively in the world, to adapt to changing circumstances, to seize opportunities, and to shape one's own destiny. For the individual seeking freedom from unseen chains, virtue means cultivating self-awareness, understanding the forces that influence us, and developing the courage and discipline to act in alignment with our authentic self, even when it's difficult or unpopular. It means being pragmatic about our own psychology, recognizing our biases, and developing strategies to overcome them. It means taking responsibility for our own liberation rather than waiting for external forces to free us. Machiavelli, in an unexpected way, teaches us that freedom is not merely a state of being, but an ongoing act of will, a continuous exercise of self-mastery and clear-sighted action. It requires us to shed our illusions, to confront reality head-on, and to cultivate the inner strength to forge our own path. The unseen chain he helps us identify is the chain of naivete, of wishful thinking, of the refusal to see things as they truly are. To break free, we must become our own Machiavellian strategists, understanding the terrain of our inner and outer worlds, and acting with decisive virtue to claim our authentic lives. We'll explore the external pressures and historical echoes of unfreedom. Now let's turn the mirror inward, because the most insidious chains are often the ones we forge ourselves, the ones we carry within. This is where the uncomfortable truths reside, the twists that challenge our most cherished assumptions about ourselves and our quest for freedom.
The first uncomfortable truth is this: the greatest prison is often self-imposed. We talk about societal pressures, cultural expectations, and external forces, and indeed, these are powerful. But ultimately, our response to these forces, our internalization of them, and our willingness to challenge or accept them is where our true agency lies. We build walls around ourselves with limiting beliefs. I'm not smart enough. I'm not creative enough. I'm not worthy of love. I can't change. These beliefs, often formed in childhood or reinforced by negative experiences, become the bars of our personal cage. We cling to past traumas, allowing them to define our present and dictate our future. We operate on unexamined assumptions about how the world works, about what's possible, about who we are without ever truly questioning their validity. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "I can't," before even trying? How many opportunities have you let slip away because of an internal voice whispering doubt? How much of your current reality is a direct consequence of the stories you tell yourself about yourself? These self-imposed chains are the most difficult to break because they are invisible to us. They feel like inherent truths, like the very fabric of our being, rather than constructs of our own minds. The first step to liberation is recognizing that the jailer is often an aspect of ourselves, a part of our ego clinging to the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. This leads to another profound, yet uncomfortable realization: the addiction to validation. In an age of constant connectivity, we have become profoundly dependent on external approval. Our self-worth is often tied to the number of likes, the positive comments, the recognition we receive from others. We crave affirmation not just for our achievements, but for our very existence. This craving is a powerful chain, binding us to the opinions of others, making us perpetually anxious about how we're perceived. Consider the subtle ways this plays out: the hesitation to express an unpopular opinion, the fear of pursuing a passion that might not be understood by our peers, the constant self-editing of our thoughts and feelings before sharing them. We become chameleons, adapting our colors to fit our surroundings, losing our true hue in the process. The fear of being alone with our thoughts, the terror of internal silence, is often a fear of confronting a self that hasn't been validated by the external world. We've outsourced our sense of self-worth, and in doing so, we've given away a piece of our freedom. To break this chain requires a radical act of self-acceptance, a willingness to be unpopular, to be misunderstood, to be truly, authentically you, regardless of the world's applause or condemnation. It means finding your validation from within, a wellspring that can never be taken away. Here's a profound paradox. True freedom isn't the absence of constraints, but the conscious choice of which constraints to accept and which to break. We often equate freedom with boundless choice, with the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But this is a childish notion of freedom, one that often leads to chaos, indecision, and ultimately a different kind of bondage. A truly free person isn't someone who has no rules,
Is someone who has chosen their rules, who has consciously committed to a set of values, principles, and disciplines that guide their life. Think of an artist. They are free to create anything, but true mastery comes from embracing the constraints of their medium, the discipline of their craft. A musician is free to play any note, but true music emerges from the constraints of rhythm, harmony, and melody. Similarly, true personal freedom isn't about an endless buffet of options. It's about the freedom to become, not just freedom from. It's the freedom to commit, to dedicate oneself to a purpose, to choose a path and walk it with conviction, even if it means saying no to countless other possibilities. The unseen chain here is the illusion that more options equal more freedom. In reality, too many options can paralyze us, preventing us from making any meaningful choice at all. True freedom is found in the deliberate, conscious imposition of self-chosen constraints, which paradoxically liberates us to focus our energy and build a life of profound meaning. And finally,
Let's confront the shadow self. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, spoke of the shadow as the unconscious aspect of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. It's everything we deny, repress, or project onto others. Our fears, our insecurities, our anger, our shame, our unfulfilled desires, even our hidden potentials. We spend so much energy trying to hide our shadow, to present a perfect sanitized version of ourselves to the world and even to ourselves. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It merely operates from the unconscious, often sabotaging our efforts, manifesting as self-destructive behaviors, or projecting its contents onto others, leading to conflict and misunderstanding. The journey to wholeness, to genuine freedom, requires confronting this shadow. It means looking into the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable, the aspects we've disowned. It's uncomfortable, often painful to acknowledge our own capacity for darkness, our own imperfections, but only by integrating the shadow, by bringing it into conscious awareness and accepting it as a part of ourselves, can we truly become whole. The unseen chain here is the chain of denial, of repression, of the fear of our own inner darkness. We are prisoners of what we refuse to see within ourselves. To break free is to embrace the entirety of who we are, light and shadow, and to integrate these disparate parts into a coherent, authentic self. This is perhaps the most challenging, yet most rewarding act of self-liberation. These uncomfortable truths that our prisons are often self-made, that we are addicted to external validation, that true freedom lies in chosen constraints, and that wholeness requires confronting our shadow are not meant to discourage. Instead, they are meant to illuminate the path forward. They are the necessary insights that precede genuine transformation. For only when we truly understand the nature of our chains, both external and internal, can we begin the arduous yet profoundly liberating work of breaking them. Having journeyed through the unseen chains and confronted uncomfortable truths, we now stand at the precipice of action. This isn't about offering a 5-step plan or a quick fix. True liberation is a lifelong process, a continuous journey of self-discovery and courageous living. But there are practices, mindsets, and commitments that can serve as guiding lights on this path less traveled. The first and most fundamental practice is the art of questioning. We live in a world that often tells us what to think, rather than how to think. From educational systems to media narratives, we are fed information and expected to internalize it. But true freedom begins with the Socratic method applied to daily life. Questioning everything. Question your assumptions, question your beliefs, question the narratives you've internalized from society, from your family, from your own past experiences. Why do I believe this? Is it truly my belief or one I've adopted? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? What would it mean to believe something different? This isn't about cynicism. It's about intellectual humility and curiosity. It's about developing a critical mind that